I'm Gary Marcus. I'm a cognitive scientist and entrepreneur. Lately, I've been doing a lot of AI policy. You might have seen me speak to the US Senate in front of Sam Altman. It is my great pleasure to be here today with Karl Friston. I will let him introduce himself, but I will say that in my former life as a psychologist and neuroscientist, that people worshipped Karl, and it's exciting to be here with him today.
That's very gracious of you. Thank you very much. My name's Karl Friston. I am a cognitive scientist, psychiatrist or part physicist, but not an entrepreneur. So I don't like to sit with an entrepreneur.
But now you're actually helping a company. Maybe we'll get there. So, I mean, in some ways we have similar paths. I think we've both been interested in how the mind works fundamentally. And for both of us, that has brought us to some degree into this artificial intelligence world. What I would like to see is a new form of AI that was based more on causality. And maybe we can talk a little bit about the stuff that you're up to, where I think you are thinking a bit more about causality. The mainstream AI right now is not really about causality at all. You can sometimes get it to say something like A causes B because a bunch of humans have used those words. The system will get confused and say that 2 kilograms of feather weigh less than 1 kilogram of steel. Like, it doesn't really know what these words mean. It doesn't really know what causality means. We're going to need a new breed of AI. I think you have some ideas about that. We probably need more ideas than the whole planet has collectively right now. Eventually, we'll have enough paradigms that we'll have an AI that can act more like a scientist than we have now. When it can invent new ideas, that's when I think it might be really helpful. Is that your take?
Yeah, no, you've used all my favorite words there. You've talked about understanding, causal reasoning. All of these things depend upon belief structures. Of course, if you haven't got a belief structure inherent in your AI architecture, you can't do any of these things. To understand is to have that mechanistic, causal ability to reason through, I would say infer, just because that's the way you manipulate belief structures.
So belief and uncertainty, I think, are super important. I don't think the current AI systems actually have beliefs. They are able to confuse naive users into thinking that they do so, because humans are gullible and most aren't trained to think about cognitive psychology or causality or behavior in relation to underlying mechanism. But I think you and I know they don't have beliefs.
Why is it that we are so easily seduced into attributing, say, large language models with the kind of reasoning, the kind of understanding you and I enjoy, even to the extent of talking about hallucinations? I mean, that's a very gracious attribute to a transformer.
Yeah, a side note, I'm responsible for that. I kind of popularized that term. And on the plus side, it became the word of the year in 2023. But it's not a very good term, right? Because hallucination still implies a level of belief, and it's a kind of personification. We need a term for, like, it just made that up.
What is an hallucination? It is a false inference. You need to understand the role of inference in the brain. And of course, inference is just making moves in terms of information processing that resolve uncertainty. So we come back to exactly where we started, which is understanding is all about belief updating, using everything that you have available to you in an active way to get the right kind of data, content, sensory information, either from the outside, Wikipedia, or indeed from your own body, that resolves your uncertainty about the way that you work in your lived world.
We don't really understand how the brain does inference in general, especially like if you think about logical reasoning and so forth. There are some horrible flaws in human reasoning, and yet there's some stuff that actually works pretty well on a day-to-day basis. Like, we don't routinely walk in front of cars. Like, we pretty well get around the world most of the time. People will tell me, yeah, well, you say that the computer has an hallucination, but people do too. And I'm like, yeah, but if you look at driving statistics, people have a fatal accident like once every 100 million miles. Like, they're not hallucinating other cars in front of them and slamming on the brakes routinely. So they have to, on the one hand, there are ways in which human inferencing actually works pretty well, like in routine, just navigating through the world. Then you have like these political things where confirmation bias is terrible. And I look at all this and I'm like, humans are a low bar. It's got to be possible to do better than this low bar. But then I'm frustrated, like, that the AI is not better than the low bar. Like, I really want to see it better. And I'm also frustrated that neuroscience doesn't really, like, I wish I could, like, look at a brain and say, these are the beliefs that this person has. Or, like, wouldn't it be great to have virtual assistants that talk directly to the brain and could, be a step ahead of me, but we're not really there yet.
I often think that machine learning has just got the wrong words in the title. This is not about learning, it's about inference.
I think that, in fact, it does a subset of learning beautifully. But, we know from cognitive psychology that there are actually many forms of learning. There's observational learning, and there's conditioning, and so forth. And machine learning is doing kind of statistical correlation learning fabulously well over huge data sets, and that turns out to be much more useful than I think anybody reasonably could have imagined. But there are other things involved in learning that are more like logical inferences, like the kind of learning that you do when you learn physics or economics or something like that, where you're really learning new ideas. And I don't think that the current generation of AI is equipped to do that, to really learn abstractions and to be able to compose those abstractions into greater abstractions, which I think is the greatest pinnacle of human thought. Like, I don't think it's there yet. People sometimes talk about, like, is AI where a dog is? I think we're not even where a dog is. This was a fantastic conversation. We should have another one. We should make this a ritual. Maybe next year in Davos or wherever we meet again, we can do a part 2, and we can look and see which has moved faster in between conversations, neuroscience or AI, and we can make it a ritual. Does that sound good to you?
That sounds a wonderful idea. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Likewise. Fantastic. Let's do it again.
Guys, that was great. I just want to don't forget this last question.
Sure.
Right now, the entire AI industry is largely focused really on what's described as AGI, so human-like intelligence. Sam Altman and others are leaning into sort of super intelligence, the idea that the recursive agent is going to then become more intelligent than all humans. Karl, I think that we have a very different idea about what that term means. Superintelligence is not a sort of single agent that then self-recursively grows to beyond human intelligence. And I'd like to hear what Gary thinks about the vision that you've put forth that we wanted to back.
The whole ways in which we workshop and develop ideas as a society will change when there are no agents really genuinely contributing. Like, I don't know any real idea that has come out of GPT-4,
right?
Unlike many newspaper columnists that I read that like genuinely interesting ideas are reflecting, talking. But eventually that'll be common,
right?
And like that will change the transmission of ideas and how we, there's kind of marketplace of ideas, and it will utterly disrupt that. And that's, it's wild and the crazy.
From that point of view, it's less about, interpolation that we see sort of LLMs and Gen AI doing, but truly, genuinely new creative things that then make us smarter. So superintelligence is more like a superorganism of humans and agents.
I think we should have
networks of intelligence.
Once we work out the safety issues, which we didn't talk about today, which keep me up at night and which are terrifying.
Yes.
Once we make real progress on the safety issues,
yes,
I think superintelligence could be a great thing. It could take us beyond the mediocre level of tribalism where we're stuck right now as a society. And I think there's great potential there. I do think I'm not in a rush to have superintelligence because I think right now we're way over our skis. We don't really know how to make any of these things reliable, controllable, truthful, safe, etc. But if we can get to an AI that can tick those boxes that should be minimum, then we could have like an intellectual playmate that could be amazing.